It's time to talk about motivational interviewing. What's up, world? Uko here from Better Therapy Now. Motivational interviewing. I didn't learn about motivational interviewing until I started working as like my first social work job, and which is normally just casework for most people. Like it's very rare, I think, for social workers to come out of school and start talking about or work in like a psych facility. I've always associated social work with just casework, um, and a very common thing that caseworkers do when they go out to the houses or to like their families, or if they're working like within a hospital as a caseworker, whatever it is motivational interviewing, because a big part of it is trying to connect with the client. And I think that's why it makes sense that social workers end up doing therapy. A lot of them who want to do it, like why it's associated with therapy, because you're trying to connect with the person that you're helping, that you're servicing, and it's interesting that motivational interviewing is seen as a therapeutic technique because it feels like you're just talking to the person. One thing that I didn't realize about motivational interviewing, so I started doing it for a while, and you do like trainings on it and you learn more about it because it's so important. Um, is that it's the main purpose of motivational interviewing is to help facilitate change. You are trying to connect with somebody, but you are trying to recognize their ambivalence towards change. And by like the word ambivalence is really important when it comes to motivational interviewing, because it's really about trying to identify where their internal tug of war is. And that's by just talking to them, asking them questions. And if you go to like an agency or something like that, and you are they're training you on this, and it'll probably be part of their training if they do social work, casework, if they're engaging with clients, especially if they're engaging with clients like inside their home or out in the community. They'll do some type of training on motivational interviewing, and they'll give you like just like a list of questions, or like questions that you could ask, or some questions to choose from, because they're just trying to teach people how to go to a stranger, like somebody that they don't know that well or know in their personal life, and somebody that will probably view as threatening, and like train you to be able to have a conversation with them. Um, but it's interesting, and it really is part of the what is it, like the assessment phase of therapy, assessment phase of casework. And it's kind of interesting that like the path that you go with a client, down with a client, and both casework and in individual therapy is pretty similar. Like there's in casework, there's kind of like this outreach thing, but besides like erase that part, there is the assessment phase and kind of like the service planning phase or treatment plan phase. And during that assessment phase is when you're doing the motivational interviewing. But it feels like you're just talking to people. Like you're not really, it's not very, it doesn't feel like a technique, I guess. It's more like you're talking to them and you have a goal in mind. You're trying to identify, like you're trying to help them identify something. If they have involvement with a caseworker or a social worker, then it's very likely that some sort of something in their life needs to change. And the first is the presentation to them of like, okay, maybe these things need to change, right? Well, not even that. Before that, it's like, this is the issue. So you kind of talk about, what happened, what got you into whatever situation, or what are you struggling with? Like if it's in a therapeutic setting. And then you identify some sort of problem, some sort of challenge. And after that, once you're trying to help them identify what needs to change, is one thing that is important is you're not really like telling them, you're not giving them the answer, because if you give somebody the answer, then they're just gonna, it's a high likelihood that they're going to be resistant to that. So you're kind of giving them ideas and allowing them to choose the best answer, because you want them to eventually, and this is kind of where the cultural competency comes in. You want them to select a path to, I guess, success, or some type of, you know, um, make decisions that are in line with the way that that's most in line with the way that they're already living their life, like in line with their culture. So you don't necessarily go into somebody's life and tell them, okay, you're going to do this. That's not the recommended tactic. And that's not really motivational interviewing. And that's why motivational interviewing is so popular, because it's very resistant to that. It's just trying to help them identify what the challenge is and what their ambivalence is towards making a decision. The tug of war between I don't know, being more disciplined versus, enjoying staying up really late at night. Like, it's hard to wake up early and get things done from early in the morning until the evening when you like staying up late watching TV. So like a tug of war between that, and then you figure out, well, what is the source of that? Like, what is driving you to kind of do something like that? I mean, that's kind of like a surface level issue. I mean, it might be something involving alcoholism or like infidelity or something like that. And it's like the tug of war between doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, and what is kind of inspiring you to continuously do the wrong thing, or the thing that's not necessarily healthy for you. Maybe I should say wrong thing. Why are you doing the thing that's creating this challenge in your life? So that's kind of where motivational interviewing comes in. Anyway, I just kind of found it to be an interesting concept, something that I think won't ever go away. Let me see if I can put this in here. Overview of being more polarizing. This is something I talked about earlier in the week. I have to reread the No More Mr. Nice Guy book, because that book, it keeps coming up. I was thinking earlier, there was a podcast that I listened to probably like a week or two ago, and a guy was talking about how his whole idea was that, I think his name was Daniel Priestley or David Priestley, I can't remember, but his whole idea was that the future of the economy is going to change, like it's going to expand what people can leverage. And in the past, there were certain kind of institutional constructs that only big businesses or corporations or institutions had access to. But now, with like social media and really just like all the technology and all the possibilities that have been presented because of technology, people with personal brands will be able to kind of leverage themselves in ways that really large businesses could in the past, or really large institutions could in the past. And he had a couple examples that really kind of stuck with me. I was like, oh, this might be the future of the economy because it's already happening. One of them was the institution of the Republican Party versus Donald Trump, and that Trump is able to leverage his personal brand in a way that was much larger than the Republican Party. Or like certain influencers like Joe Rogan or big podcasters, their personal brand becoming much larger than legacy media. And that, when he started talking about that, I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But the whole idea behind it, where he thought the economy was going, was that you don't necessarily need like millions of followers to leverage a personal brand. You could have like a very small number of followers that are very dedicated and be able to leverage that in a way that is, I guess financially lucrative for yourself. And he thinks the future of the economy is going to go towards that, especially with the development of AI, which is interesting to me because I think like the development of AI, it makes perfect sense, one. And as AI begins to develop and take away, I guess, jobs where a lot of people are doing the same thing, it will eliminate a whole lot of jobs. And then people will have commitments to a person's kind of like personality or like their brand or their reputation. And like there'll be like a level of trust because of that. And it makes sense because things that people know are generated by AI or machines or robots or whatever, they're like, okay, well, maybe that works efficiently, but there's going to be like a natural resistance to that because it's not necessarily human, and more of an attraction to somebody that they trust, that they see all the time, even if they're smaller. And that's even true with like, I think a lot of things, like in certain ways, it's already very much ingrained in culture. like if you think of something like food, like I think branding on a smaller level has a huge impact on food. Um, it's kind of similar to things like mom and pop shops are really, which have like a brand inside of a neighborhood, or really high end restaurants, which might have a brand throughout the world or like in a city or something like that. Um, to me, that's like a similar way of branding something in a way that like a small number of people or even just like one person can leverage. But let me get to this thing. I don't even know how I got to that. Anyway, no more Mr. Nice Guy. So I got way off on that. I do need to reread that book because it's just coming up over and over again. And I did a video a while ago on kind of being polarizing and my resistance to being polarizing, like not ruffle. I always say ruffling feathers, not ruffling feathers or avoiding confrontations, and how I think that kind of started early in my childhood. And I think this is really common for a lot of males specifically. Like this, the pathway that I took from going to a place of being very confrontational as a kid. I'm talking like, 7, 8, like early grade school, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, to being like like avoiding confrontation as an adult and being more passive. And like the idea of like not being able to set boundaries. I think that pathway is really common for males for a couple of reasons. So I'll kind of talk about like where I like my path when I was. So I was born in Kansas. I came to Phoenix when I was 3.5 or almost 4 years old, and we lived on the I-17 and Thomas Road. So back in the 90s, that was a really bad neighborhood, really low. It still is, but it was then. It was even worse then. And I went to Hurd Elementary School, which is right around the corner from I-17. I think it's on like Thomas and like 23rd Avenue or something like that. Low income school, like mid 90s or early 90s or something like that. And I was in kindergarten there and first grade there. And I remember going to like the playground, and the teachers in that environment were just happy the kids weren't dead. So they kind of let them just run wild. And being on the playground there was like being in Mad Max. I attribute this to a lot of the kids being low income, but a lot of the kids were always fighting. They were always treating each other horribly. The teachers never really intervened the way that they should. So there was like excessive bullying there. Things kind of went to like the maximum severity when it came to certain like fights and arguments and stuff like that. I remember I would see kids getting fights in like the lunchroom, and it would be like bloody. You would think they were having like a prison fight. So the environment there was much more intense and it was much more violent, and the altercations became just a regular part of my day. I remember one time we went out to the playground. Kids were just fighting. Like it was just like the boys would just all get together and just do violent things. And then we came back in, and the teachers were like bragging about the kids fighting, like, oh yeah, he was out there fighting too. And oh, this one was fighting too. Like they just like didn't really care or recognize that, oh, maybe you should break that up before somebody gets hurt. So that's where I was at for 2 years. And then when I hit second grade, we moved up north, not like northern Arizona, but like a couple, like 4 or 5 miles up north to Bethany Home Road area, Bethany Home Road and 27th Avenue, like that area. In the school there, now that area is like really bad, but back then it was a pretty nice neighborhood. And the school there, Alcatil Elementary, the teachers like paid attention and really cared and didn't want their kids to get hurt and would break up fights. And if somebody got into a fight, it was like an unusual thing, but not for me. Like if a kid would look at me cross-eyed, I was just swinging. And that's just how I was. And I was like that for a while. And the teachers were just like, oh my goodness, this kid is crazy. I'm surprised they didn't kick me out of school. Um, I'm, I even think one of the parents must like press charges or complained or something like that because they started putting me on medication, either in second grade or third grade or something like that. Eventually I got off of it, but for a while they would like put me on it, probably just to calm me down. Like I've worked in foster care group homes before. long time, like 10, 15 years ago. And that's what they used to do to the kids. It was just, which is totally messed up. Like it definitely messes up their brain chemistry, but that's what they did to me. Um, but yeah, that was kind of the culture. And the message that I got was that, being angry, having temper tantrums, all these things are bad. Don't do it. And that, obviously that's the right answer, but I think it was a way in which they taught me that over the years, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, I got it in my head that if I express my anger, then it's a bad thing. Like I can't do that, and that makes me wrong. So by the time I got to like sixth grade and then went into junior high, um, I no more temper tantrums, no more getting in fights, no more anger. Not necessarily no more anger, still angry, but like kind of suppressing the anger at this point because I didn't want to do something wrong. I felt like it was wrong to express it, and it was right to just suppress it. So nobody really was there to teach me how to manage the anger and express the anger and like use my words and kind of communicate communicate when things frustrated me. So that was how that went. But that even evolved, even though I was suppressing it, that was also the wrong thing, but nobody was there to really teach me that. So then by the time I got to high school, I was at a point where, you're in an environment where it's a little bit more socially driven and things are a little bit more frustrating in terms of, social status, social hierarchy, um, being involved in cliques or being rejected by cliques, things like that. And I went from suppressing anger, suppressing frustration to like avoiding conflict and not wanting to make people upset because I didn't really want to have a negative reaction from others, by expressing anger. And I think that kind of developed from being told, okay, anger is bad. And then by high school, I'm not really able to express myself at all. And then as I go from high school, and also I want to be perceived as nice because since anger is perceived as bad in my head, it's like, okay, well, then the opposite must be good. So I want to be perceived as nice. So then by the time I get to college, I'm basically a nice guy. Like I don't get into any conflicts. I always attempt to appear as if nothing is bothering me, even if somebody does something wrong to me. Um, and then I want to appear as if nothing will lead me to anger because again, that message is still there. Anger is bad, and in my head, the opposite must be good. And then I kind of self identify or self define what the opposite of anger is. And I think that, and basically what I'm saying is that the anger in my childhood, and the expression of anger in like an immature way evolved into very passive, non-polarizing, and not being able to set boundaries and not being able to express frustrations in ways that are productive. And I think that's a very common pathway for a lot of men because a lot of them, especially since school is more or less designed for characteristics that are more common in females and less common in males. A lot of boys will probably be interpreted as, okay, he's angry, he's hyper, he has temper tantrums, he doesn't sit still. We need to teach him to like stop doing all those things and teach him that those things are bad. Um, and then that can like, kind of evolve if they're not educated in a way that's productive for them, then that'll evolve into that more passive behavior. And that's what I think the book No More Mr. Nice Guy is trying to undo. They're trying to, I mean, they don't really describe the evolution of that, which I think is really common. But he just points it out, calls it out, and paints a picture or develops kind of a blueprint of what I guess what you should be, or, develops a blueprint of kind of what you should be, which is not a nice guy. Let me see. But it's been forever since I've read it, and I know I listened to it not that long ago. I went to a meetup. It was before the new year, and it was a meetup of oh, my dog, Buster, what are you doing? It was a meetup, just a guy meetup, and it was the meetup group was inspired by the No More Mr. Nice Guy book. But let me see. So in it, he defines nice guys. Um,
I don't know.
there's a couple of things in the book that I didn't really agree with, but it's probably common to a certain extent. The first one was that nice guys actually aren't nice. Um, they're just pretending to be nice to kind of get something out of you, which I think is a thing that really exists. Um, I think nice guys. It's not that they're not nice. It's just that they're trying to be the opposite of something that they were told was wrong. Like their concept of good is a distorted concept of good, right? And then their concept of bad is a distorted concept of what it means to be bad, right? When there's like much more of a kind of a gray area, and it's very situationally dependent, right? So the gray area would be like, you know, saying something that's polarizing, and this might be as simple as telling a joke or giving an opinion about something that isn't popular, and that's what I think that's what a nice guy would avoid doing, that they should be able to do. And that's why a lot of my videos are like, men should be more polarizing, because I think it detaches them from that nice guy, what becomes natural for a nice guy. And I also say that that's important because one, it's their authentic self, but two, I think it helps them construct their own environment. Um, Everybody should play a part in constructing their own environment, and part of that is inviting the right people into your life and kind of filtering out the wrong people in your life. And you have to be able to express things that are true to you to filter out those that really shouldn't be a part of your life anyway. Not that you're not open, not like trying to be closed off to people that don't agree with you or people that are different from you. I'm not saying being like discriminatory, but the people that are like within your close circle, like you want those to be specific people, right? You want those to be people that compensate you for your weaknesses, people that challenge you, people that you can develop relationships with. And I think part of constructing that is being polarizing, is being willing to be polarizing and to not be so uncomfortable with being polarizing. That's why I like that book. That's why I want to reread the book, because I think it gives you a blueprint um to try to kind of do that. What book goes really well with that is the book Models by Mark Manson. Um I was thinking the other day, like, there's a few questions that you should be able to answer. Right? Everybody should be able to answer, especially if they're trying to develop some type of brand. And it was the first question was, "What are you like?" It was, "What are you like?" Um, Let me see. Oh, what do you like? What makes you interesting? What are you working on in the next 90 days? And what's your bigger vision? And that first question, "What do you like?" had me thinking. And Mark Manson came across my mind. James Clear came across my mind, the author of Atomic Habits. Mark Manson's the person who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which is very similar to No More Mr. Nice Guy, I think. I'm not saying that it's specifically the same um, principles, like the same pathway to get to that endpoint where you kind of have a purpose and you are your own person. But it just takes kind of different routes. But anyway, so I was thinking Mark Manson, James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, because I think Atomic Habits is very central to this idea of self development and discipline. You know, like habits are a really good way of engineering discipline into your life without relying so much on willpower and self control. And then the last one was Tony Robbins, which I've only heard Tony Robbins speak on other people's podcasts, but I just recognize him as like a self help person. I think one of his most popular books is a financial book, actually. It's not. He's getting a little older too. I don't know how old he is, but I watched him speak not that long ago. I was like, wow, he looks older. Um, I don't know. I guess in the end, just be more willing to ruffle feathers. Uh, I did a video the other day on core values, and it was like not the importance of making core values, but what are your core values, and and like how to develop core values. And I always say, you should really identify or explore the most difficult time in your life, and then also explore the best time in your life. And I explained the core values in the video. It was discipline, creativity, purpose, abundance, and resilience were the my five core values, or are my five core values. Um, I've, to be honest, I've gone back and forth with between creativity and curiosity. I'm just trying to identify and finally decide which one is like the dominant core value, because it's either curiosity comes from creativity or creativity comes from being curious. To me, they're very, very similar in terms of the way that I'm thinking about them, and like in terms of like what they do for me and why I think that they're important. Because I think the reason why I think they're important, because they allow for growth in a couple of different areas. One, creativity and curiosity allow you to just grow in terms of the person that you are, because you're more willing to experiment with new things, which increases the likelihood that you'll find something that you love. And then number two, when it comes to you like identifying your strengths and trying to like reach some type of big goal, I think the creativity, specifically creativity, not even curiosity, but creativity, will allow you to think of ways to not only reach that goal, but go beyond that goal. And I think it requires, once you get to a certain level of competition, a certain level of difficulty, if you're kind of mastering something, you have to become more and more creative on how you get better and how you go further. That's why I think creativity is really important. But curiosity, I think there's core values, and then there's just like values that are important to you. And I'm feeling like our creativity is a core value, and then curiosity is just a value that's important to me. And it's like within the realm of creativity. Creativity would be like an abundant term. Like all the core values are kind of like umbrella terms in a person's life, and then there's things that kind of fall into those. But the core values are the core. They're the most important. They're the ones that don't really change very much. I'm starting to I feel like curiosity is within creativity. Because as you expose yourself to new things, it allows you to be more creative. So it's starting to make a little bit more sense. Anyway, I forgot where I was going with that. But I did the video, and I talked about, identifying or exploring the worst time in your life. And I usually look at the worst time in my life, which, I mean, there's a couple of, everybody has, 1, 2, 3, 10, I don't know, bad times. But I've had a hard time looking at what I think of as like the best time in my life. And I haven't really explored it. There's a few that I can really point to. I think one that is really important which is kind of interesting, because I feel like for me, it was high school was one of the best times in my life, for a specific reason that I'll get to. But I think for a lot of people, this was the worst time in their life. Or the reason why it was the best time in my life is because I was thinking about that this morning, I think. Yeah, this morning when I woke up, I was thinking about this. I had a goal, really a goal/dream, that was so important that it allowed me to kind of just escape. I mean, maybe even escape reality. It caused me to, I focused so much on that I wasn't asking myself certain questions at the time. Now that I'm thinking about it, like I wasn't really asking myself questions about like life or my future. I was thinking about my future, but only like in one avenue. But the dream, and it seems kind of silly now, but I was obsessed with playing college basketball for UCLA. And I was just completely wrapped up in this. I remember I would wear like UCLA clothes like every single day. Whenever I saw something UCLA, it would just kind of like almost take my breath away. Like I was so caught up in this. I was so like in love with this idea. I don't even know what really drew me to UCLA at the time. This was like 90s, early 2000, like early, yeah, like 99 to 2003 was when I was in high school. And at the time, I think they had like Baron Davis was like the point guard for UCLA. And I remember Steve Lavin, I think it was the coach. And Steve Lavin was interesting. He was like this, like he looked Italian. He just looked Italian if he was. He had like slick back hair. He looked kind of like he worked for the mob or something like that. It was kind of funny. But and then Baron Davis was like this super just electric point guard that was playing for the team. And he like on the court, I mean, he might have been 6 foot something, but he looked short on the court. because it was Division I basketball, but the guy was like super explosive. They had a few other players that were pretty decent, Earl Watson, um, a couple of other players, but I used to watch them, and I don't know how I ended up liking them so much. It might have been the legacy of UCLA that I was attracted to, because I'm the type of person that I like dynasties. You know, I like places that have a history of success. So that might have been what drew me to them at the time. I'm not really sure, but um, I I just got obsessed with them. And I remember I was like one of those I was that kid in high school that always had a basketball in his hands. My hands were always dirty. My clothes were always dirty because I was always dribbling and getting my hands dirty. I would be at the back of the school where the basketball courts were early in the morning, like shooting around. Um, I was always playing over there at Washington Park, and I was just super obsessed. It's like really all I talked about. I remember one time, one of the kids, a more mature kid too, like a way more mature kid, was just like, I've never seen anybody like a college that much. And I don't know what it was about it. It doesn't really. It's not even really clear to me now, but it was I think it was the best time of my life, and a time that I often think about because I was so taken away by a dream that I had. And I just enjoyed the process of chasing that dream. I enjoyed like waking up early in the morning every day and like running the stairs and going to the gym every day and like shooting around and playing against other people and trying to challenge myself in certain ways and doing things like that. And I think core values definitely grew out of that. I think the first core value that I have today that grew out of that and kind of matured through different things that I did in my life, is discipline. Like I had a lot of discipline. It's because of the people within athletics. Like if you are really into sports, then you're going to be looking up to people that have a lot of discipline. You have to have so much discipline to get to a professional level where, you know, everybody sees you play and that's what you do for a living. So that was the first thing that came out of that. And it's like really obvious. But thinking of the other ones, you know, thinking of like creativity, purpose, abundance, and resilience, I would say not really. I don't think creativity came from that. And I don't even think abundance came from that really. But I do think that purpose came from that. And I think purpose is really the most important one that I need. I need and I believe that um well, I need an authentic purpose, like some type of purpose that's true to me. And I think all people need some type of purpose to be able to live their best life. But I specifically need that because, like, that during the probably the most formative year of my life, like, that's what I had guiding me. So I need that in my life guiding me now. You know, so being able to answer the question, like, what is your authentic purpose is really important to me. And the fact that I add it's not just purpose, but it's authentic purpose because I think the one problem that I saw with the whole basketball thing and wanting to play at UCLA is that it wasn't really authentic. Like wanting to play basketball and being at UCLA wasn't the thing that I really wanted. Um, I liked playing basketball; like it was good, but there was a certain part of me like forcing myself to do it, and I think that it was my strategy, like getting to UCLA and playing on that team and wanting to be there and the idea of being there wasn't really about, oh, I'd be so happy just playing basketball every day. That wasn't really it. It was that people would see me playing basketball and that would be kind of my strategy of acceptance. Like they would accept me and I would have value as a person if I was a basketball player who played at this level and everybody was watching and I played in front of these large crowds. Like I would be a popular person. It was like this need for acceptance for me, and I didn't really know how to get it any other way, and I didn't really want to get it in the other ways, like in socializing with people, or going to parties, or doing things that were rebellious, or joining cliques, or doing whatever that was. It was like I want to be an athlete, and I want to be accepted in this specific way. So the way I thought about that was it was kind of like this, almost like this urge or lust or like need for glory, like I wanted to achieve glory and kind of, I guess, be victorious in the face of other people. That's what I was looking for. I mean, I think this is very common for teenagers. You know, most teenagers want acceptance within their social group. and I wanted acceptance and popularity on a much like larger scale. I don't call it narcissistic or whatever, but that's just kind of what I wanted. Probably because I just grew up watching sports and I saw that and I was like, okay, well, I want that too. So it's kind of like my version of wanting to be a rock star. But I just got too obsessed with this idea of wanting to be the rock star. And I said it's not. I don't think that that's authentic, only because it's not. I wasn't in love with like the thing itself. I was in love with what the thing would give me. And I think that's very common. And that was the big issue that I took with kind of how I was living my life then. Like I would have rather found something that's a little bit more authentic and a little bit more in love with like the thing itself. Like if I was in love with just playing basketball for the sake of playing basketball, then that would have been authentic. And it's not like I didn't like it, but I was more interested in what it would give me. Um, and I think there's kind of two coins to this, two sides of this authentic purpose thing that can be um, bad and why it's good or why it's important. So the one thing is like not liking the thing itself or even like enjoying the work itself. But another one is that I believe a lot of people have a purpose thrust upon them. For example, maybe somebody grows up in a family where everybody wants them to be a doctor, everybody wants them to be a lawyer, and that is like that is the purpose that their family thrust upon them. Or maybe the purpose that's thrust upon them is having children. It's like, okay, you have to have kids, or which I think is I want to have kids. Not saying that that's bad or anything, but sometimes people like that purpose is just thrust upon them. So it's just this idea of guarding against the purposes that might be thrust upon you by family or environment. Not saying that like they're naturally bad, but you have to do like I think it's important to do some self discovery and realize like what purpose do you actually feel like you have on this earth, or what purpose do you want guiding you and guiding your decisions and pushing you forward, versus what purpose is kind of given to you or thrust upon you or forced into you. Like what are the things like your family and friends like that telling you have to do? Because those aren't always the best things for you. Like those things, you can end up in a situation where you are very unfulfilled. So that's why I always throw in the authentic purpose. I don't even have it there. Authentic purpose. So yeah, that's kind of what I feel like I'm still in search of that specifically, like identifying specifically what I want. I know I've said, oh yeah, I want children and I want a family, which I do. Like that would be really good. That'd be really good for me. I'd be really happy to have that. But I don't know. I'm 40 years old now. So I'm like, is that it's not like I can just go and get like I can go get pregnant myself and get a sperm donation. No, I would, in order for me to have kids, I would either have to marry somebody young enough, which at 40 years old, I have to marry somebody that's like 10 years, 8 years, probably at most younger than me, or be with somebody that young. Or I would have to like get a surrogate, which is like $90,000 to $100,000 on the cheap end. Like, what's it like getting a cheap surrogate? For some people, it's like $150,000, $200,000. So it's like, how would I save that kind of money? Or adopt, like if I really wanted to just adopt, if I wanted to be a parent, which I'm becoming more like whenever I talk to somebody about, oh, okay, yeah, I want kids and I want to have like a family, of my own. They usually say, oh, well, then why don't you just adopt? Like you can still be a parent. Like there's a lot of kids out there who need parents and you can just do that. And I'm like, no, I want my own. And it's like, well, why am I saying that? Is this like a repeat of the whole just wanting glory thing, but like in a different way or at a different level? Um, is this kind of like a pride thing? Like I want to see like my kid. There are certain aspects that I really want to see. Like I would like to see a kid that like is biologically mine, just to kind of see, like just to enjoy, them looking like me in certain ways, or having certain, I know they wouldn't be just like me, but having certain characteristics like those types of things would be really interesting to me, which I don't think I would get with an adopted child, even if I had him or her as an infant. Like I don't think I would get that, but I mean, I would still get to experience the process of being a parent and like the sacrifice involved with that and all those things, like, but I mean, to be honest, it's not even like, I mean, I spend time with my family, but not that much time. I'm usually just like working, I'm usually kind of involved with my own thing. I'm kind of just like living this single guy life, like I could be like at my brother's all the time and like playing with his kids, and I've gone to like softball games before and sometimes I go to their performances, but it's not like I'm like always in their life, you know. Um, I think it'd be a little different if my little brother had kids, only because it's like a different type of relationship between my little brother and my older brother. Um, but yeah, like I think my little brother would be more like wanting my help and like be more accepting of it, and like, and I could just kind of come over and take the kids. Like I would have more freedom to like, I guess, be involved. Whereas my older brother is more like, if we invite you, then you can, you know what I mean? Like it's just different. Um, because we have different dads, so it's almost like it's different sides of the family between my two brothers. But I don't know. What's up, Buster? I don't have any food for you. Anyway, but I don't know. Now I was thinking just yesterday, um, that I guess I'm becoming more and more open to, or just starting to accept the fact that I may never have kids, And it's like, well, what am I going to do with my life if I don't? And I'm starting to just think, okay, well, I might as well make the most use of being a single male at 40 years old. Because one thing that got me thinking about this is this idea that the grass is always greener on the other side. Like, I'm like, okay, I look at people who are parents and I really look up to them, and not even married. I've never ever been envious of somebody who's married. Being married has just never really crossed my mind as something that I would do. I don't see myself ever doing it. I don't really see the benefit of it. I guess it's not something that I look forward to at all. I just never really cared about it. But like kids, yes. If like my finances were right and I was like in a good place, then yeah, I would totally be into that. And where I'm going, like financially, I'm gonna be in a good place. Like if I become independently licensed therapist, I would have like a job where I could work from home at least sometimes. It's a good career. I'd be licensed. Like everything would be good. There would be some job security. The only thing I would be like threatening is if I lost my license for some reason. But so yeah, I think that would be good. But I don't know. Like now I'm like, well, I don't have kids. I'm not married. I'm about to sell my condo, so I'll only have the townhome that I live in now, which I'd be obligated to pay the mortgage. But I mean, I could always sell that and even go cheaper, which would afford me a certain level of freedom, right? And I would be free to chase some other dream. So that's the only thing that I could see myself doing, like identifying something that was really, really difficult and very like with a small likelihood that I would be successful at doing it. And Buster, stop. Just stay right here. Stay right here. Stop walking around. Yeah. Something that has a very small likelihood that I would be successful and would require a lot of years, and just kind of dedicate myself to that and just become obsessed with that. Like that's something that I think would make me really happy, is obsessing over something, working on it every single day for a really long period of time, and like achieving mastery at whatever the thing is that I'm trying to do. That would, because that's kind of how that was what was guiding me when I was a kid, but there was no real like authentic purpose. I was just kind of looking for the glory in it. I think this would be a little bit different. Like this would be a little bit different. I would be doing something that's in line with what I like writing books and obsessing over basically self-improvement, mental health, and discipline. I think that's what it would be. It'd be like self-improvement, mental health, and discipline. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm at a crossroads. there's green grass on my side too. And I think that's a good thing. I think I'm starting to kind of accept that. And I'm getting to a point where, I need to like live that a little bit more fully and kind of accept that and just be grateful for it. Like be happy that I have that. I think one thing that would make me really, really, really happy is if my little brother had kids. That would be like the best thing ever. I'd be very excited to see that. But I don't know. I think that's it. I have like a whole bunch of, I wanted to talk about taking risks, but I feel like it's been long enough. Thanks for listening, I guess. Uko, the Better Therapy Now podcast, episode 9. I don't know what I'm going to title this. I think I said, neutral men are invisible. And then here's why you need enemies. That's not going to be the title. It's probably like motivational interviewing and something else. But I will see you next time.